Tappers, the hour struck and the vow of night is drawing. Near, drawing near. Perfect time to dust off the jazz and dive headfirst into a world where danger dances with charm. I've got tails tighter than a monster's alibi and twice as slippery, so fix your tie, straighten your hem, and fill your glass with something strong, because once we step through the door, there's no turning back. The broadcast is humming, the shadows are restless, and tonight, the spotlight's on secrets, ready to chase the thrill. Now, we are starting today with some SCPs tonight. We are returning to the world of SCP with 15 through 19. No, wait, 15 through 18. My bad. 19, I haven't got hold of anything with that yet. But we are going to continue on with the world of SCP. Now, I don't know anything about one I do. I know one of the SCPs I've heard of. I don't know the others. But anyways, let's just get right into it before time flies by without us knowing. This one is SCP-015. I don't know how to start this, or if anyone will even believe me. But I have to get this out. Someone needs to know what's going on beneath that building. I'm a structural inspector, not some thrill-seeking urban explorer, not a Foundation agent. Just some guy with a flashlight, clipboard, and too much caffeine in his blood. Last year I was contracted to assess the lower levels of an old industrial warehouse, slated for partial demolition in Baltimore. It's supposed to be a routine check for rods, map out outdated plumbing, recommended upgrades or removals. That building, the one the Foundation now calls SCP-015, wasn't on any city registry anymore. Just a ghost from an old waterworks project, buried in paperwork, forgotten by time. But when we arrived, I could already feel that something was off. The air smelled like copper and mildew. You ever walk into a place that feels old, like sickening? Like the walls are falling apart or, out of place? I pushed it down, told myself it was just my nerves. The upper floors were gutted, concrete slabs and rusted railings. But the basement was another story. We had to force the door open, and it groaned like a dying animal. And behind it, the pipes. Pipes everywhere, crammed into the walls, ceiling, and floor. Some were bolted, others were fused to the concrete like they grew there. And none of them matched the blueprints. I radioed upstairs, told my assistant to hold position while I went deeper into the photos. I took maybe 4 steps before the first sound hit me. Breathing. Deep, metallic, uneven, like bellows in a forge. The pipes weren't just groaning, they were expanding. Then, what sounds like exhaling, too. The air got thicker, warm, moist. It smelled like rotting iron and burned oil. I should have left right then, but something caught my eye. A glint movement. One of the pipes seemed to have shift. Not from the pressure, but like it was recoiling away, alive. And when I turned to leave, I realized the passage behind me had changed. There were more pipes than there was before. The hallway had closed in, and the way back wasn't there no more. I've been completely cut off. Panic didn't even have time to set in, since one of the larger pipes, thick like a subway tunnel began pulsing. A valve opened on its own, on its side, and from it poured a thick sludge. It didn't hit the floor, though. It crawled. That sludge reached me like it was alive. I ran, of course, twisting corridors, pipes closing behind me, opening ahead. It was like the building was guiding me deeper. And every time I tried to backtrack, a wall of copper and iron had sealed it off. I started screaming, hoping someone to hear me. But no luck. My radio was just static. Eventually I collapsed, lightheaded, soaked in sweat and rust water. Then I heard it. A voice. Or maybe a chorus echoing through the walls. I don't know how long I was down there. Hours? Days? The air was thick. Heavy like oil. I hallucinated things, maybe. Tools dragging themselves along the floor. Wrench-shaped appendages reaching from valves, gouges that blinked like eyes. But something changed. The pipe stopped moving. The breathing slowed. A narrow shaft opened up in the wall behind me, just large enough to crawl through. And with no hesitation, I scrambled through. I was spit out into the alley behind the warehouse just before dawn. My clothes soaked, my gear half melted. I don't remember walking home, and I tried to report it. I did. But by the time the city officials arrived, the building had been mysteriously cordoned. Cordon? I don't know. I'm saying that word completely wrong, but is that word where you just completely close off a building, I guess. No, not a record of my inspection. No trace of the call logs. A week later, men in dark suits knocked on my door. I wasn't home, but my neighbor said they took everything. My notes, my tools, even my spare boots. They knew. The Foundation knew. And now I see it everywhere. Pipes in my apartment that weren't there before. A hiss in the walls when I try to sleep. A valve in the back of my closet that turns on its own. Now, like I said, that's actually one of the SCPs I've never actually heard about. Though that is pretty creepy. But it sounds like it'd be easily containable as long as you just leave it alone. I don't see much reason to get involved with it, if that makes sense. But again, I'm not these explorers. I probably should become one, but I'm probably too accident prone to do such things. So I probably will not do that. And I'll just leave it to the professional explorers. So, on to the next one. And this one is SCP-016. And if I recall, let me look through my papers real quick. It is, my bad. Didn't mean to do that. Looks like I'm having a malfunction. Okay. Yep, I accidentally clicked the malfunction button. My bad. 016 is a Keter class special containment procedures, and it is exactly what I thought it is. Alright, my bad everybody. It is a type of pathogen SCP. I'd have to look through it all, but it looks like this story will tell us a little bit about it through their eyes. Alright, so let's get right into it though. told us it was just a containment breach drill. That's what they always said, or say. A drill. You hear the alarm, the klaxon scream read across the halls. The overhead voices tells you to calmly report to your assigned zone. But no one's ever calm, not when you work at Site Redacted. I should probably get the people in the studio to get me one of those sounds for that. And know what kinds of things live below your feet. We were a skeleton crew that night, only 4 of us on level 2. Mostly maintenance and janitorial oversight. I was running system checks on the B-Wing air filtration units when the alarm hit. Containment breach, level 4, zone 3A, pathogen protocol engaged. That stopped me cold. Level 4 was where they kept the biohazards. Sealed behind thick glass decontamination corridors, triple layered hazmat protocols. The kind of stuff that doesn't just kill you. I didn't ask questions, and I ran. I just ran. I linked up with Carter, one of the guards at the checkpoint near the lower stairwell. He said he was already suiting up. There you go. The blood. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a little confused by this bit of saying. So either, however this was written, it's not making sense, or they had messed up a little bit of their grammar. But I guess it's supposed to go that Carter says something's moving inside 016 sector. That name hit like a fist into the stomach. SCP-016, the blood plague. Not some sci-fi nonsense either. A pathogen that didn't just infect you. It changed your metabolism, made you into something it could use. We weren't supposed to talk about it, but the rumors floated around. Test subjects who bled for hours without dying, screaming fits that turned into shrieking bone cracks as their bodies twisted into new forms. Carter and I locked the sector's doors manually, following the emergency override, but the breach warning was already spreading. The system couldn't track the infected anymore. Something inside had gone dark, like the cameras had either failed or had been removed. Then came the audio feed. At first it was just heavy breathing, then coughing, girdle wetting, then a ragged voice. But I couldn't make out what it was saying. It tried to sound human, but it wasn't. Then another voice came. Just about the same, a little bit more understandable, but still hard for me to hear. Then screaming, and a sound of bones snapping like twigs. Then the feed cut. Carter turned to me, face pale. Quarantine protocols are useless. And he was right. Minutes later, the lights in the hall began flickering. And then, silence. Total silence. You never really realize how loud a place like that is until everything stops. No humming vents, no radios, just your own breathing. We heard movement coming from within the vents. Skittering, wet slaps of skin on metal, and then came the sound of metal bursting open. Carter raised his rifle, but before we could react, something dropped from the ceiling. I didn't get a full look, just a shape with long limbs, skin stretched thin like wax, bones showing through the muscle where the muscles bulged too fast for the skin to keep up. Its chest rose and fell with unnatural speed, like it was trying to outrun its own heartbeat. It was SCP. It was a form of SCP-016. It looked like Carter, and that was enough for me. I ran. I didn't even turn around when I heard Carter scream, or when I heard the wet crackling that followed. I didn't stop until I reached the isolation stairwell and slammed the emergency containment seal shut. Then I sat there for hours, listening. I started coughing the next day. My fingers started bleeding by nightfall. They said I was lucky, quarantined before full adaptation, pumped full of inhibitors, flushed with more antivirals than a human body should be able to take. But I still dream of the screams. Carter screams. And the way it looked exactly like him. Now, as I said, I have heard of this specific SCP due to the fact that it was one of my more intrigued ones due to it being a pathogen type. Which, of course, there's not a lot of media that has types of pathogen. Well, no, I could probably take that back. There might be a lot of types on the telly, but I have not really been paying attention that much, I guess. I could be behind on the times, as you can probably tell. Alright, enough of that. I don't have much else to say besides that it's creepy because that has a very interesting outcome if it, from what I understand, if it gets a little too out of hand, that has a different outcome of what we just heard and read. But, on to SCP-017. The Shadow That Watches is the title, and this is again one of those SCPs I have never heard about, because it is probably again not one of my more entertained ones. You ever walk into a room and feel like you're being watched, but no one's there? Like something crouched just out of you, waiting in the corners where the light doesn't quite reach. Yeah, that's how it started for me. I was stationed at Site Redacted during nighttime maintenance rounds, the graveyard shift, if you want to call it. Not a glamorous post. Mostly checking light fixtures, watching security monitors, cleaning up after the daytime researchers. Quiet, dull, which was pretty daily. At least until recently. I got a call around 2:12 a.m. that a bulb had gone out in one of the containment observation rooms. Now, it was room 017, but that room didn't ring a bell at the time. I wasn't cleared for the full anomaly roster. And frankly, I preferred it that way. The less I knew, the better I slept. I completely agree with him, to be honest, because the less I know, the more I can sleep, and the less trouble I can probably get myself into. Because my curiosity probably get me killed, and or arrested, and brain wiped. I grabbed a ladder, some fresh bowls, and headed down to the west wing. When I got there, the room was dim. Not dark, just dim enough to know there's something wrong with the bulbs. The observation booth had red tape across it, but no full lockdown warning, so I figured it was safe. The inside containment chamber was small, bare walls, reinforced glass windows, no visible furniture, just a single overhead spotlight, or, in this case, a flickering spotlight. I stood there for a minute, watching that light sputter, casting warped shadows along the wall. The shadows kept shifting in weird ways, like not really responding to how a flicker works, but more in a sense like it was out of touch. I chalked it up to the nerves, told myself it was my mind playing tricks on me, and stepped into the booth to swap out the bulb. In the moment I flipped the safety panel and shut the light off completely, I felt the temperature drop. Not just cool, but dropped to freezing temps to where I could see my breath in an airtight room. At first I thought it was a trick of the eye, a patch of deep black in the already dark room. But then it moved like smoke, or like a silhouette that wasn't connected to anything. It drifted behind the glass, and it was looking directly at me, or I guess as close directly at me as a shadow could get. My hand was still on the switch, and I didn't even think, just slammed it. Spotlight burst back to life overhead, and the thing vanished instantly. One moment it was there, right up against the glass tendrils, stretching like ink and water. The next, it was gone, erased by the light. I nearly fell off the ladder. Took me a solid minute just to get my legs to work again. And I reported it, obviously, you have to. But when the higher-ups checked logs, they said the cameras picked up nothing. No breach. Probably fatigue, they said. Hallucination from lack of sleep, they said. But, I know what I saw. And it didn't end there. That night, I left the wing and tried to clock out early. But the lights started flickering in the hallway. Every shadow stretched a little too long for what they were. Every corner looked like it held something. I couldn't sleep when I got home. And over the next few days, I started noticing more things. My own shadow not lining up with my own body, moving half a second late, stretching across walls where no light is coming from. Once I flipped on the bathroom light and I saw a second shadow standing behind me, but no one was there. SCP-017 is the living shadow. That's what I eventually learned. Kept isolated under direct, constant lighting because the moment the lights go out, it's loose. Some say it kills anything casting a shadow if it gets close, engulfs them, compresses them until there's nothing left but darkness. But I think it's worse than that. And lately, I've been noticing the light bulbs around my apartment burn out faster than usual. And that is the end of SCP-017. And I have to say, that is a very interesting SCP. I have never heard of this SCP, but it sounds very simple, but it still sounds creepy enough to where it gives you that kind of thought process of, if... I don't know if anybody else has experienced such a thing, where if you are paying attention to something in front of you, you see something move in the corner of your eye. That's what it reminds me of. Not completely, but it's as if something... If you turn the wrong way in front of a light and you see in the corner of your eye a shadow that technically is actually yours or something, it doesn't seem right at first. That's what it reminds me of. I've had those kind of interesting encounters where I'm walking in front of my lamp and I'm in the corner of my eye, I'm catching my shadow go across like the curtains or picture frames or glass, anything of that sort, and kind of distorts the shadow. Now, that's what it reminds me of. I don't know if anybody else has experienced such a thing. If you have, you can just send me a holler, call, whatever, and let me know. But I have to say, that is very interesting, and I know that I have a long list of SCPs to go through. So I am going to be quite enjoying these, and this is going to be a long process. But I know we still got one story left, but this one is not as long. It doesn't look like. But also, I am on a tight schedule, because I want to say my coworkers or my gremlins, they're letting me know that my time frame is shortening very quickly. So we are going to end it here for tonight. But I guess before I go through my little, what is it, outro, I have to say I'm enjoying these SCPs quite a bit. I hope you guys are too. And just like that, folks, the curtains draws to a close, the jazz fades, the whispers hush, and the shadows slip back into the cracks of the night. You've been a fine crowd, sharper than a gumshoe's wit, and twice as classy. So tip your hats, drain your glasses, and remember, the tales may end, but the mysteries never sleeps. Until next time, keep your heels clicking and your secrets safe. This is your host, signing off with a wink and a whisper. Good night, you marvelous misfits.